show. We do have podcasts available at ksgf.com, the KSGF app, Spotify, iTunes. And then, of course, we are streaming on YouTube. Are we up and running?
You are up and
Okay.
running. You look very tan today.
I do?
Yeah, I think it's the shirt.
Well, you know what? That would be appropriate. Let me tell you why. Yesterday, I was wearing a shirt, and then my wife looked at me and she goes, I never thought I'd actually like that shirt on you, but I do. And then she said, didn't I get you a shirt on The Great Escape? What happened to that shirt? And I said, I don't think so. I think maybe we got shorts or something. And I said, but I'll look in the closet. I said, I do remember taking a shirt on A Great Escape that you got me while you were visiting your best friend in Florida. I said, but honestly, I don't even know where that is. It may be in an area of the closet that I don't look at very often. It makes it sound like I have a huge closet. Don't at all. But I look at about 8 inches of my closet.
And not the stuff pushed back.
And not the stuff pushed to the left or the right. And so I get in there, and immediately I find the shirt she got me in Florida for The Great Escape. And then right next to it was this other shirt. It's like, oh, yeah, she did get that for me in the gift shop, I guess you would call it. Or it's not a gift shop as much as they do have some gifts, but clothing and necessities, medicines and sunscreen and cigarettes and all that sort of stuff. And that's what this shirt is.
Oh, it's the Great Escape shirt.
It is a shirt from the last Great Escape that we went on the resort, and I wore it probably once and then forgot about it. And so I thought, well, I'm going to put it on today. And then you said I look like I'm tan because of it.
I was going to say, you just put it on and boom, you got a tan.
It's just an amazing thing how, see, the Great Escapes just continue to pay forward. Since we're talking about it, and I know I've mentioned it, but because people still do ask, and we should probably make some sort of official posting on this, but the plan currently for the next Great Escape will not be in November. It will probably be around this time next year, and that's just because the last 2 or 3 trips have been Cancun, and although we'd find different resorts, we like to kind of bing bong around between different locations, and in November it was all Cancun that was available for our direct flights that we set up, and other than Thanksgiving week itself, and did not really want to do that. Spring of next year, however, would open up the possibilities of Jamaica, Dominican Republic, and we've just really got overwhelming request to do Dominican Republic again from a lot of you that go on the Great Escapes, and we haven't been there in a while, and because it's so universally loved by people who go, we're going to wait until that's at least an option. Now, of course, there are other aspects of it that might make a difference depending on resort availabilities and so forth, but that's what we're looking at right now. The direct flight thing, the chartered direct flight, that's really the deciding factor oftentimes, because obviously resorts are open at all of these locations, but we keep it down, we always have anyhow, to a direct flight, because it just... It allows us to get there in a short amount of time. It diminishes the likelihood of a missed flight and then trying to get another flight, and then you're a day behind. It diminishes the likelihood of lost luggage, keeps the cost down. And so while it does limit the number of locations that we can go to, it also essentially gives us an extra day, at least, at the resort because of less travel time, perhaps even more than that, and cuts down on cost and likelihood of just a lot of different mishaps happening. So it's sort of off the beaten path there. Wasn't planning on starting the show that way today, but just kind of fell into it because of Sarah complimenting what she said looked like a tan. It's not a fake. I didn't get a spray on or anything. I thought I should note that in case anyone's wondering. Like, he sure is really trying to cover this up a lot for what clearly is some sort of spray tan, but it's also probably the lighting a little bit. All right, a lot of big things happening yesterday. What clearly was at least so far desired outcome is not having to escalate things to the point that Trump was trying to get across as clearly as he could. He would escalate them too, and that is the further destruction of infrastructure within Iran and last-minute acceptance by the Iranians for a couple of week ceasefire and opening of the Hormuz Strait, and so markets reacting to that and so forth. And of course, as usual, Democrats are beside themselves. I mean, you've got to stop and ask yourself, if there is absolutely never, ever, ever an outcome you find acceptable, do you think maybe you're the problem? I mean, really. I would challenge you in any given situation that President Trump is involved in to think up a scenario in which you would say, no, you know what? Actually, no, I agree with him on that. I think that this turned out well, aside from him killing himself or stepping down from office. In fact, even if he stepped down from office, you'd still be mad because then J.D. Vance would be in office. You're just never, ever, ever happy. That is a you problem. That is an emotional, psychological problem. When people reference Trump derangement syndrome, that's what they're talking about. It isn't the fact that you disagree with Donald Trump. It isn't the fact that he makes you really angry. It's that there is zero outcome ever in which you would say, oh, actually, no, I agree with that. Zero. And if you're telling yourself right now, well, that's not true, then just do that exercise for yourself. And what you'll find is that it isn't about the truth. It isn't about the outcomes for you. It's about Donald Trump. That is all that matters to you. That is Trump derangement syndrome. When nothing in the world matters but for him. Outcome doesn't matter. Whether things turn out better makes no difference. If he's involved, you are against it. That is Trump derangement syndrome. And we're already seeing it with a number of different Democrats. We'll also talk about some of the election outcomes. If you didn't stay up to watch any of the election results last night, the convention center vote did not go through, and it was pretty decisively voted down by the people in Springfield. And so that's something that, at this point, it sounds as if the city is saying, yeah, we're just going to have to move on from this and focus on what is important to the people of Springfield. And so we'll touch a little bit on that as well. And then Gavin Newsom's wife has really been making the rounds, unintentionally. She's always been out there in California. See, here's the thing about Gavin Newsom's wife we're learning, and this is relevant because Democrats seem to already be trying to set the stage to make him the Democrat nominee for the presidency. I'm not kidding you when I say this. She makes Hillary Clinton seem normal. I'm not talking in terms of likability, because, yeah, Hillary Clinton, nobody can be less likable than her. But just normal thought, normal perception of things. While Hillary Clinton clearly has twisted views of things, she's at least in the ballpark. She's in the universe. Gavin Newsom's wife, as increasingly these videos pop up of her at these different speaking events, giving her thoughts on things, she's a flat-out lunatic. The closest so far, in terms of high-profile wives, that I think that she is demonstrating she's comparable to is Tim Walz's wife. Remember what a lunatic she was? Gavin Newsom's wife is much more polished, but the substance of what she says is just as nutty as Tim Walz's wife. Michelle Obama seems like a pretty okay normal chick compared to Gavin Newsom's wife. It's going to be very interesting to watch how he has to try and get a hold of her. I'm frankly looking forward to how all that's going to play out. But all this is stuff of which we will speak as the morning show continues. We do have happy hour coming up. That is going to be on Friday, and it will be at Vineyard Market. Half-price appetizers, buy one, get one on some beers, on some wines, as we are out there from 4 to 6, hanging out and having a good time. And I just know the weather is going to be patio-friendly. If not, however, fear not, we'll still have a great time at Vineyard Market, 4 to 6, happy hour on Friday.
In the first alert forecast from Ozarks First, meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 76. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 51. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 78. And taking a look at Friday, partly sunny with a chance of showers in the afternoon with a high near 77.
Will's Chop House, some of you have been to this restaurant, and they have run advertising here. They have a 1 year, well, their birthday celebration is today, in fact, 1 year open. And for their first birthday, a free glass of champagne for everyone. Well, I suppose if you go. But here's the big deal for you is they wanted to, as part of the celebration, is do a gift card giveaway by text, $400.
Whoa.
I know, for one person, not like spread out. At least that's how I understood it. Oopsie daisy me if I was wrong. It was supposed to be 8 $50 gift certificates. One $400 gift certificate.
We go big around
here.
here.
Yeah, we go big. That's right, we do, whether people like it or not. So all you got to do if you want to register, and this is a 3-day registration, through Friday, you can get registered. Just text the word Will, Will's Chop House. So just the word Will, WILL, to the Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447-KSGF. And if you do it correctly, you'll get a kickback letting you know that you are registered. And don't put like any smiley faces or exclamation points because it's an automated system. It's not like, oh, we see it and then we pick one. It automatically categorizes them based off of that word, WILL, and if you put anything else, it won't recognize it as a registration. So that's why I mention that. Text the word Will, WILL, to that text line 417-447-KSGF, and that will get you registered for the $400 gift card to Will's Chop House. Boom, shakalaka. So Trump, Iran agrees 2-week ceasefire. President Trump announcing last night that he had agreed to Pakistan's proposed 2-week ceasefire with Iran if they agree to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and Iran has now agreed to do so. Now, all right. Well, let me read to you this first, and then we're going to just sort of highlight a few areas in which Democrats are either trying to weaponize misinformation or they are just ignorant themselves and don't care that they're ignorant. So Trump made the announcement, quote, based on conversations with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Field Marshal Asim Munir of Pakistan, and wherein they requested that I hold off the destructive force being sent tonight to Iran and subject to the Islamic Republic of Iran agreeing to the complete, immediate, and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz, I agree to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. This will be a double-sided ceasefire, Trump posted on Truth Social. Iran confirmed later Tuesday that it had agreed to reopen the strait over the next 2 weeks under coordination from its military. Per the Associated Press, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said for a period of 2 weeks, safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz will be possible via coordination with Iran's armed forces and with due consideration of technical limitations. Now, by all accounts, this is a good step. This is a positive thing. And, of course, verification and adherence and additional steps forward will be needed. But this is a good thing, unless, of course, you're a Democrat, and then nothing is good. Everything is bad. One of the claims is that this is a failure because it required Pakistan to be involved in the ceasefire agreement. That Pakistan did what Trump should have done. Okay, let me try and explain this as simply as possible. When you have two opposing sides, very often there is needed what is seen as best as possible as a neutral party in order to step in and do the back and forth negotiating. Or even just the but not even negotiating so much, but to do the communication. This is what Trump has done with countless countries that resulted in numerous peace deals. We were a third party. And the reason that a third party that is viewed as neutral as neutral as possible is necessary is because it's a trust factor situation. There's a credibility factor. You tend to not put as much credibility in terms of just pausing things or a ceasefire in your enemy, because what's their goal? Their goal is to make you lose, right? And so when they come to you and say, hey, how about we work out a deal? You're suspicious of them. This is why when Trump was running for president, he refused to say whether he wanted Russia or they tried to pin him down saying, "Would you want Ukraine to win this thing, don't you?" And he was very adamant in saying, "I just want it to stop." And he was pounded. How dare you say you don't want Ukraine to win? That's just like letting Putin win, that you don't want Ukraine to win. But he understood that if he was going to have any sort of ability to negotiate between Russia and Ukraine and into things, he had to be perceived as neutral as possible. He could not give either side any more reason to believe that he was siding with the other side. So in other words, if he comes to Russia once he's elected president for the second time and says, I'd like to work out some sort of deal, well, Trump has already gone on record saying that he wanted Ukraine to win this thing, so not a great arbitrator or arbiter. So this is why it oftentimes is not only appropriate, but absolutely necessary to have some third party come in and coordinate these things. It is not a failure of Trump. The other part of this, which is, I knew this would happen because of the derangement of the left. And that is the same people who have been accusing Trump of getting us into World War III are now mocking him for being a coward for not getting us into World War III. Pulling out the taco thing. Now, I know many of you, they've tried to get traction with this taco thing, but outside their little bubble, they aren't really able to do so. And taco is Trump always chickens out. Yes, the same guy that they all claim is stubborn, the same guy that they claim will destroy everything to get his way, also at the same time claim that he's some sort of chicken that always at the last minute chickens out. Now, I know to you, a logically thinking person, you say, but that's a complete contradiction. Yes, it is, but this is how the left works. As soon as this announcement was made, the thing that people on the left have been calling for, we've got to stop this thing. We've got to stop this. This is insanity. What's going on? War crimes. Trump's committing war crimes. The minute he announced, with pleasure, that we've got a 2-week ceasefire deal, we're working on this 10-point plan in order to hopefully make this thing permanent, those same people who have been accusing him of committing war crimes are now accusing him of chickening out because apparently he's supposed to continue to commit war crimes. What do you people want? See, this is where you've got to maybe take a moment and understand you have a mental disability. And I'm not saying that in order to try and, it's not mockery. There is really a disability that you have, the inability to even recognize your own contradictions. On one hand, you claim you want all of this to stop. You claim that the proof of Donald Trump is evil because he won't listen to reason, that he just continues moving forward. The moment he does what you claim you would like for him to do, you start demonizing him for it. You start mocking him for it. What do you want? See? Your mind is apparently unable to recognize these contradictions. And maybe for some of you, looking at these stark reactions to what he does and the reaction that you have emotionally when Trump does what you have been calling on him to do, that you can stop for a moment and go, wait a minute, gosh, what is going on in my mind here? What do I want? I do want to talk about some of the lunacy of the claims of war crimes. That apparently the new standard, according to Democrats, if you blow up bridges or power plants, suddenly you're a war criminal. This is a new standard. Not sure if you've ever seen a war before or seen any sort of military action before. I'm not really sure that any have ever occurred without having that sort of infrastructure damage. In fact, that's usually step one. So as to diminish the mobility capabilities of the enemy. All in all, this temporary, I mean, we say it's temporary, it's a 2-week halt to the firing back and forth. Hopefully it sticks. But as all things, I would argue with Donald Trump, he's not into symbolism. And so if Iran does not, be it with this temporary ceasefire or the follow-up steps, result in the outcome that Donald Trump wants for the United States and the world, then we will continue taking action until Iran does comply. And that's a reality that I think a lot of people are waking up to, hopefully the Iranians as well, that we're just dealing with a different president of the United States. It's not one about symbolism. It's not one who just in the name of peace comes up with some document and we can all pat each other on the back while in the background the firing continues.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the First Alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 76. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 51. For Thursday, sunny with a high near 78. And taking a look at Friday, we'll see partly sunny skies with a chance of showers in the afternoon with a high near 77.
Ozarks Elder Law for all of those needs that you may not even know that you really need. I think traditionally we think about the need for such service when we pass on and who's going to get my stuff. I mean, that's kind of what it generally boils down to, right? And old school, if you hadn't really written anything down, I mean, really old school, then family would just kind of figure it out, maybe fight in the front lawn over it, whatever. I guess they could take you to court and go through all of that. And so then people would start writing it down, and just that in and of itself doesn't really count for anything any longer. Even if you download something online, it's like, this for $199, this is legit. No, it doesn't work that way either. You got to have it done legit. Otherwise, government is going to come in and they are going to take over. And it's not just about wills. It's not just about trust, but it's about your nursing home care in the future, should you end up in one. A lot of folks spend their entire lives paying into a system, tons and tons of taxes, and despite that are able to still purchase their own home, purchase their own land. And then when it comes time to getting some of those tax dollars back that you paid into in order to pay for nursing home care, they're like, oh no, you also saved and bought your own home. Guess what? We're going to take that instead. But you can prevent them from doing those things so often. It's just knowing how to do it. And that's what Ozarks Elder Law does. Consultation costs you absolutely nothing whatsoever. 10 area locations. Reach out to them at ozarkselderlaw.com, and they'll walk you through what needs to be done in order to get that free consultation and find out how much it'll cost to get yourself secure. ozarkselderlaw.com. The Democrats once again began screaming about the 25th Amendment. Now, I don't know if you want to call it an upside. The fact that they constantly scream the absolute worst thing ever has resulted in people tuning them out. Calling him a Nazi, calling him Hitler. It's to the point that the average person, they just roll their eyes. And not only does it not hurt Trump's credibility with average people, and I'm talking about the name calling specifically, it diminishes the credibility of Democrats to the point that there's nothing that they can say any longer. In their minds, you just don't get it. You don't get how bad he is. And so they have to ramp it up. The problem is they've hit the ceiling. The 25th Amendment. I mean, how many times did we hear this during the first term? I remember there was some chick that set up shop in the Capitol. She was supposedly some doctor in order to give a presentation or meet with lawmakers arguing that Donald Trump had diminished capacity and that the 25th Amendment should be utilized in order to remove him from office. The funny thing is, the 25th Amendment itself requires the vice president to kickstart things. That would be J.D. Vance. He's another one that they say is Hitler. I mean, so even if it was legit, it's very clear, like their concerns were legit and they weren't overblown, and Donald Trump did have the diminished capacity of someone like Joe Biden. It's clear that he has a cabinet filled with people that are fully on board with what he's doing. And largely because of the results, they recognize that most administrations come nowhere near the effectiveness of this administration, which that in and of itself defies the argument that he has diminished capacity and can't function as president when he's able to get more things done as president than it just in the first 6 months than most presidents have gotten in 1 or even 2 terms. If Trump has diminished capacity, what does it say about all of you? What does it say about all of you who have been in Congress for 40 or 50 years, who can't name or the average person can't name a single thing that you've ever done effectively, that you've ever fixed? These people who have been in office for 40 or 50 years, all the time talking about eliminating poverty, all the time talking about making healthcare more affordable, yet everything that they bring along that's some sort of massive package they claim is the great answer to it only makes it worse. You're telling us that someone with diminished capacity is able to run circles around you, not only in terms of politics, but getting things done. This is a guy that took a city like Washington, D.C., and Memphis and some others and completely saw a plummeting of crime because of his direction in cities run by Democrats for generations that have not been able to do that. So what does it say about you that a guy that we're told by you is so diminished in his capacity, he doesn't even know where he is, so he's got to be removed from the presidency via the 25th Amendment, yet he's able to do the things that for decades you have been claiming you can do, yet you don't? The latest call for the 25th Amendment was based off his verbiage, talking about, getting rid of a civilization will be gone. First off, these are words. I mean, really? A social media posting? Incidentally, this is not unique. Part of the strategy that was utilized in order to get Japan to surrender was talking about just finishing them off, letting them know that this was an attempt to persuade them to sign on to the Potsdam Treaty, the agreement to get things done, taken care of, and it was pretty much, you do this or you're gone, you're eliminated. It will be the end of you. Well, and by the way, Harry Truman followed up with a couple of atomic bombs because they were like, we don't really know if we want to jump on board with this thing. We'll wait to see whether or not the Soviets reach out and, maybe work some sort of side deal. Okay, boom, bomb 1. Boom, bomb 2. By the way, Democrats, he was one of yours. Also a member of the Klan. Just bonus factor. So the use of that sort of rhetoric is not something that's new. Now, here's the other thing that I think Democrats are incapable of understanding. And listen, I understand if a lot of people are as well. Trump, this is where Trump has found his success. He reads other people and he speaks to them in their language. He has street smarts. He sizes people up. He recognizes and absorbs what it is that they desire, what it is that motivates them. And then he creates scenarios in which, based off of their desires, he crafts these scenarios that prompts them to choose pathways that are conducive to what he wants. It's called manipulation. Donald Trump was speaking to the people that are continuing on in Iran to be defiant in the language that they understand. Now, here's what's important. The terrorists that are still in some capacity in charge of Iran, oftentimes these are people that they themselves don't mind sacrificing their lives. That is something that they are oftentimes not only fine with, but that's just part of the deal in order to keep the cause going, aka their civilization. So talking about killing them, talking about taking out leadership, that is not effective communication. That's like, so what? We got more. We got another line of people, and then we got another line of people. We got another line of people. So the way that you communicate with them that is meaningful is to let them know, yeah, you know, all those lines of people that you're talking about, they'll all be gone. Your civilization that you think that you will be sacrificing yourself for, it will be gone. So it will be for nothing. You lose. Game over. Now, while some people might argue that is a threat that they still won't, fear enough to back down, it at least is speaking to what matters to them. In their mind, their civilization is not the protesters and the normal freedom-desiring citizens of Iran. In fact, those people, are a problem to their civilization, which is why they execute them. When Donald Trump, Democrats in the media, and when Donald Trump talks about an entire civilization will be gone, they're thinking, oh, all these people that live within the borders of Iran. That's not what the psychopaths that are being targeted are thinking, because they don't see those protesters as part of their civilization. Those protesters are the enemy of their civilization. Their civilization is this Islamic rule with an iron fist. And the people who are compliant with it, and the people who recognize and understand that the enemies of that all must be killed. That is in their minds the civilization. Donald Trump knows that. So when Donald Trump talks about ending a civilization, he knows the message to them is received. That is them, not the protesters, not the citizens, but the Islamic rule in Iran. That message was not for the world. That message was not for American consumption. It was meant specifically for the enemy in order to translate to them the one thing that matters to them most, the only thing that matters to them, and that is that civilization of Islamic rule in Iran will be gone. Now, the challenge, of course, that Donald Trump has, or anyone in this day and age, versus, talk back to Churchill and Truman, and the verbiage used in order to try and convince the Japanese that it was in their best interest to surrender, is we didn't have the internet, we didn't have information. These things could happen without Monday morning quarterbacking occurring in real time. So you could speak the language of the enemy in order to get to and not have to worry about, the average internet troll or the average political opposition who is uninformed or they just don't care, not understanding why it is that you're doing what you're doing. The ability to utilize tactics against the enemy without having to explain it to a mass audience, which by explaining it counters the effectiveness of it was not something that we had to deal with once upon a time. But in this day and age, we do. And so a message that Donald Trump posts on social media in which he recognizes that the problem actors, the terrorists running Iran, when he's talking about civilization and eliminate, he knows what it is that they're thinking. This is a communication, a language that he is speaking to them. 50, 60 years ago, he could have done that without having the opposition party out there and it being broadcast all over the place and people not understanding the context of it, people not understanding this is how you have to speak to these people. And this is the world that we just live in today. Fortunately, Donald Trump is the sort of leader who has his eye on the ball and does not get distracted by those who are trying to derail the American mission. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. I want to note, though, we may not know, we may end up knowing, but the talk about the attacking of bridges and electrical grids and so forth, which absurdly suddenly has been declared a war crime when this is how every war is conducted. I mean, it was noted. Maybe we'll play the audio in the upcoming hour of a retired airman noting that Mark Kelly is out there saying that this is a war crime, the idea of blowing up bridges and infrastructure, when that's exactly what he did in the Iraq War. This is how wars are fought. They just make things up, knowing that their little followers will run around believing it and repeating it. Now, when it comes to bridges and blowing up bridges, I think that there's pretty much one way to do that, and that's blow them up. When we talk about, quote, disrupting or destroying the electrical power grid, I don't know that that would play out in the fashion that we think that it would, and that is blowing it up with missiles and bombs, as much as utilizing some new technology to just shut it off. Let's not forget Venezuela, best as we know, largely the success was due to the fact that we were able to flip a switch, hit a button, and virtually everything that they had in their tool bag that required any sort of electronic command or signals or anything was shut down. We had the ability to just shut it down. So, again, I don't know how it would play out or how it may play out. Should things move forward to the point that it is determined we have to start, quote, destroying their electrical infrastructure, but I don't know that it would be the traditional way that we have always imagined it and carried it out in the past of just blowing it up as much as firing off some sort of EMP or something to either fry it or temporarily shut it off so that it incapacitates to some degree the Iranian military. Got to get another traffic update. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 104.1 and good, Wednesday morning, everyone. We're a couple days away from our happy hour at Vineyard Market, 4 to 6, while we're out there doing our happy hour. And you come out and join us, kick off the weekend, half price on appetizers, and buy one, get one on some beers and some wines while we're out there. Of course, we will have the Friday Road Show, Friday out at Scramblers, and then we will have that really awesome happy hour. There's also a chance for you to win a $400 gift card for Will's Chop House as they celebrate a 1 year, first birthday or anniversary, however you want to look at it. And that registration is by way of text. So if you text the word Will, WILL, to the Pyramid Roofing Company text line, which is 417-447-KSGF, then that is going to get you registered to win a $400 gift certificate so you can help celebrate 1 year of serving the Springfield area of some incredible food there at Will's Chop House on South Glenstone. So just text the word Will to 447-KSGF, and that will get you registered for that. I want to read a text message. We're talking about the latest developments with Iran, and one of the text messages coming in said, my dad was a Navy pilot in World War II. He was out in the Western Pacific at the end of the war when the 2 atom bombs were dropped. Even after the ceasefire was signed, they were on high alert, combat air patrols for 2 months because elements of the Japanese Army and Navy would send up planes to attack our Navy ships. The problem with the left is they do not understand the concept of evil in our time. Many times they won't quit until they are entirely devastated. And this is true. It's an interesting contradiction because oftentimes people, particularly people on the left, they think they're being humble, but they're actually being arrogant. They're being arrogant in assuming that the opposition thinks just like they do. And so if they just reach out and explain to them why this is a good thing and that we don't want to harm you, that it will be received the same way they think that they would receive it. And that is like, oh, well, we can all just get along. There was back, maybe it was the 90s or the post or the aughts. It was sometime, and I remember a number of celebrities that decided to take it upon themselves. They were going to go over to the Middle East and just get Israelis and Palestinians together to talk. If we just talk. And it's the arrogance of believing that everyone thinks to some degree the way that you do. Not understanding that there are other cultures that do not interpret messaging the same way that you interpret messaging. And the people on the left are such contradictions because on one hand, they celebrate this concept of diversity and other cultures and portray themselves as great experts when it comes to other people and how we're all different. Yet when it comes to dealing with them, particularly during conflicts, they don't recognize that. They don't understand that. They don't operate as if they understand that. They operate as if they're dealing with another liberal. If we just talk to them and just show them how kind and generous we are, and we offer to give them cash, or we offer to, do whatever it is that they're asking, and then they see. We lead by example, see, and we show them that we're willing to sacrifice a little, then they will. But that's arrogance in believing that everyone interprets and sees things and the same way that they do. But that's not a reality. Donald Trump, his strength is knowing that and accepting that. We talked in the last hour about the significance and importance of Donald Trump talking about a civilization will be gone, and knowing that that was a specific message for the perception of the terrorists that are still in charge of Iran. You know, you kept hearing a lot of people say, and even some Republicans, well, we're not, that's just a horrible thing to say. We're not at war with the Iranian people. Donald Trump knows that. Donald Trump knows that the people running Iran do not see the Iranian people as part of their civilization. That's why they execute them when they don't comply. That's why they mow them down in the streets. That's why they killed 60, 70, 80,000 of them over the past several months, because they're not in their civilization. They are a hindrance to, they're an obstacle to their civilization. See, Donald Trump understands that. He gets that. And increasingly, the arrogance of people believing that if I just talk to them the way that I would want to be talked to. But they're not you. And they don't see things the way that you do, or at least the way you'd like to think that you do. That's a whole nother level of things. You have AOC out there, and it is incomprehensible to me that this happens in this country, and I don't know if there is some law or some rule in Congress that prevents it. You have AOC, a sitting member of Congress, telling our troops that they have a duty to refuse Donald Trump's orders because they're illegal. She said to every individual in the president's chain of command, you have a duty to refuse illegal orders. That includes carrying out this threat, talking about the taking out of bridges and certain infrastructure. Now, we've had elected Democrats in the past tell our troops that it is their duty to defy orders that are illegal, and then subsequently label certain actions illegal, like Iran. How many times did they say this is an illegal war? But as if concerned that our service members can't connect the dots, Ocasio-Cortez specifically, like, this thing right here, you do not do this. Now, think about the implications of this. If this political party gets back in charge, if a political party that is accusing our troops of carrying out war crimes, carrying out illegal orders, what are they going to do to them once they get back in charge? I think a lot of people just tell themselves, well, we don't have to worry about it too much. Once they get in charge, they'll forget about it. Will they? These are people who spent the entirety of the last administration in which they were in power tracking down Americans, some of which didn't even go inside the Capitol, but were on the Capitol lawn out of vengeance. You really think that James Carville, he said it. Once we get back in charge, we're going to start rounding these people up. He's talking about Trump. He said, well, we're going to go after family members. Increasingly, Democrats are fully acknowledging that once they get back in charge, they don't even bother to claim that it's for this specific crime or that specific crime, because it's not about the crime, it's about the person. Show me the person, then I'll figure out the crime. And to have having elected officials when we're at war with the number one exporter of terrorism in the world, threatening our service members that they better not do this, because if they are doing it, they are committing war crimes. I mean, I know there's a lot of discussion about what treason means and whether or not that's aid and comfort to the enemy. But if that sort of thing is okay, it's clearly okay in the Democrat Party. Clearly, it's not just, it's embraced. Siding with the enemy while we're at war, openly and publicly, and condemning our troops, accusing them of committing war crimes against the enemy. They've made it very clear that that is perfectly fine, legitimate, and, in fact, required within the Democrat Party. But within Congress, I mean, I don't know, maybe a censure or something? Or is this now acceptable in this country? Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 76. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 51. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 78. And for Friday, partly sunny with a chance of showers in the afternoon with a high near 77.
I want a great homeloan.com. You got home loan needs. You got the characters in their team. And they're always looking out for you. In fact, one of the things that Alex talked about this past Friday is that they moved their entity, their I want a great homeloan.com entity, to a different institution with different folks because of the company they had been with just did not align with their values. And I mention that because I know that is important to a lot of you, and I know a lot of you, your values line up with their values. And I forget exactly what example he gave, but it was pretty clear to me that, again, it was because of the values that they have are aligned with the same values that many of you have as well. And it was important for them to, I mean, that's not an easy move to make. And they said some of it was actually based off of feedback from some of you in having to, in some of the interactions and dealing with the folks that they were housed with there. And that meant a lot to them. And they listened, and so they decided to make that move and wanted folks to know about it. And I think that says a lot about them. I know it says a lot about them. And as important as it is that, they really bear down and do hard work and go above and beyond, and that you have their cell phones and they're available 7 days a week, and they're going to work to give you every option possible. I think all that is important, but those values are just as, if not even more important. And so I thought I'd make that mention to you. And, of course, all those home loan needs, refinance, reverse mortgage, iwantagreathomeloan.com, because you do. Let's talk a little bit about the elections that took place. And, of course, the big one that I know was of interest to so many of you is the convention center. And this has been a very... I found it to be interesting and insightful regarding the relationship between the city of Springfield and the citizens. This has given us an opportunity to see something that I don't know that we've really seen before. And that is a less tainted view of that relationship. And I'll explain what I mean here by that in a moment. Now, if you haven't caught the results, it did fail, that being the tax, the hotel-motel tax, for the purposes of the convention center. And in fact, it failed to a greater degree. I look back at the numbers from November 4th, in which the first vote took place. And the total vote count at that time was almost 7,500, and the yes was 3,553, the no was 3,935. So it was about a 6-point spread, give or take. 47% had voted yes, while 53% had voted no. This time around, the vote count was significantly higher. We're looking at roughly 13,000 votes, 57.87% no, with 42.13% yes. That's a 16-point difference. So it clearly went in the opposite direction that the city was hoping, despite tens of thousands of dollars being spent by a lot of interested parties in order to push for this. And we talked about this yesterday, what direction it was going to go. And my gut was people who got out and voted for it for the first time probably would do the same. People who voted against it the first time, in all likelihood, would get out and vote against it again. While there may have been some movement, potentially, that this was one of the efforts that they undertook, they recognized through their internet survey they did and getting feedback from citizens that people felt there really wasn't enough information about the convention center, and they tried to answer that by having these different little listening sessions, and then have coffee with these people over here. Then over at the Discovery Center there was this interactive thing, and then they released the aspirational vision of what the convention center could look like, and all of this was in an effort to fulfill that perceived desire that people expressed that they didn't know enough about it. And so the question was, all right, was that going to compel more people to come out because to me, the key was going to be those who hadn't voted before at all, because I just didn't believe there was going to be a lot of movement, maybe some movement from the no camp to the yes camp, but I didn't believe that it was going to be enough in order to change the vote. So it was going to be a matter of the people who get out to vote, who didn't make me vote last time, and which direction that would go, and it clearly appeared to go in the direction of no. The fact that, I mean, you were talking about a November election before versus a spring election, and the significant increase in people voting this time around. A lot of this really defies the general expectation of things. I think that there's a number of different factors here, and I think that the city really is either going to have to try and continue operating forward with a city that does not feel as if, with a citizenry that does not feel a very good or have a good relationship with the city, or in an effort to try and get some of the things done in the future that they want to get done that will require the support of citizens. There's going to have to be a real massive cultural change in the city that I don't think they're prepared to do, because it would require a lot of cleaning house. And that includes elected officials. And that is a big haul that would involve some of these groups like the Chamber and Good Government, all of these different organizations that really are instrumental in getting a lot of the people elected to the city council. That they're going to have to recognize, if they want to go in a direction that brings the citizens back into the fold on their side of things, that is going to require them to clean house. Them to recognize, okay, we cannot have this mindset. We have got to get new people in there. And I just think that the relationships are too close with the status quo folks and those organizations that they would rather move forward with a more hostile relationship with the citizenry, and not get as much done than try and change things. Now, there's a few different components here that I want to talk about that I believe, breaking it down, are responsible for why this thing not only failed, but failed to an even larger degree second time around. And I want to talk about that coming up. The Pyramid Roofing Company text line, 447-KSGF. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the First Alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 76. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 51. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 78. And taking a look at Friday, partly sunny skies with a chance of showers in the afternoon with a high near 77.
I see three primary reasons for the failure to pass the second go around this convention center issue. And one of them, it was a miscalculation combined with the fact I think people do just feel really taxed, and it's always taxes. And while I know the city work to explain, hey, you're not going to be paying these taxes because it's going to be people who stay in the city, it still is a tax issue. And there was a misunderstanding that I think also affected my thinking of this when I believed that it would probably pass going into November. Didn't talk about this a whole lot other than saying it'll probably pass because in Springfield, every time there is an opportunity to raise taxes, the people in Springfield do it. Now, part of that reason is because so often there is a built-in base. And I think most of you get that and recognize that. So, for example, if there is some sort of tax increase on the ballot that involves education, you have educators and retired educators and family members of educators and church people who go to church with educators. And so you've got this real built-in base there of people that are automatically sympathetic that are going to get out to vote. And those, of course, usually happen in April anyhow when most people don't get out to vote. And you are talking about education, which a lot of people, even if they aren't directly connected, they're sympathetic towards, and so they support it. Same thing with fire. Same thing with police. That there is that built-in base. And that assumption, I believe, was at play for the convention center without actually thinking about what that base is. And subsequent to the November loss, I thought about it and was like, there actually isn't that same sort of base built in. Yes, there are a lot of government employees, but that doesn't mean that there's a direct connection. When people in education, they're dealing, that's their job every single day. If there was there's a visitor, there's Welcome Springfield. I don't know how many employees are there, and it's not even a government entity. But it's not like fire or police or education in which people that have, like, as if there's a base of convention center employees of 4,000 that have family members that we're all going to benefit from this. That's not a thing that exists. So that built-in base, I believe, was overestimated. Secondly, the latter of these two are both very important, though I think the final is the most important. But the second, a lot of unanswered questions. I know I had a lot of unanswered questions. And I will thank Mark Heckey, the CEO of the Visit Springfield, which is the Convention Center's Bureau, what the name is now, who came in for an hour and answered questions. Mayor Schrag and Greene County Presiding Commissioner Bob Dixon came in and answered questions, and a lot of which I felt did not really, quote, answer the question, but there was an attempt to, and there were some acknowledged, yeah, we don't really know that, and so forth. But for the numbers, just for a lot of people, did not add up, and that included me. It seemed as if the presentation was, hey, this is going to be a great thing for the city, and there were a number of numbers that were presented as evidence of that, but then when you would try to dig down on the numbers, sometimes it was a little gray, it was a little smoky, and just as an example, there's no need to rehash all of it, but some of the, quote, success was dependent on the number of people that would visit the convention center, utilize the convention center, that foot traffic. And part of the economic benefit, we were told, which makes sense, are people who aren't from the community but will be in the community because they come to the convention. So maybe it's just some whatever organization, business, and they're bringing all of their employees, all of their members from all over the country to Springfield, and those people are going to spend the weekend in Springfield when they're outside of the little shops that they're doing and the education, and then they're going to be spending money, and that's money that wouldn't have been here otherwise. The problem was when it came to those numbers, the estimated numbers, they didn't differentiate between how many of those people are coming from out of town versus events that are based in Springfield anyhow. And so the people that, like if you have a boat show or, some sort of event in which the vast majority of people are already from Springfield that are going to go to it, so you're not really bringing in any additional dollars. And the answer seemed to be, well, we don't really know that. The other big one was the requirement for this to work, according to the people that put together the study, was there had to be attached to it, physically attached, a 400-plus hotel that also had a separate little ballroom and everything, I believe. And there were no immediate plans for that. It was something that the city said, hey, this is going to be a private investor deal, and that's something that we've talked to people about, but we don't have any further information. So there were just, it was interesting because they recognized from the results of the November election and the response they got from people, it was lack of information that caused a lot of people not to vote for it. And while they were out there with, quote, with more information, at the same time, there was still a lot of lacking information. I mean, the best I could honestly, just as I observed it, see as new information was the aspirational rendition of what one might look like. I mean, that was really, to me, the only new tangible information that was made available. Everything else seemed to be it just not rhetorical so much, but I don't know, it just didn't add up. And again, that's just my perception of it. I think the third reason that this failed is the biggest problem that Springfield has, and it is the culture of this complete divide between the people who run the city of Springfield and the citizens themselves. I think the fact that for the past couple of decades, every time the city said, hey, we need more of your money, and the people responded by saying yes, gave this false sense of we're pretty in tune with the community and they're in tune with us. Looking at everything in context tells me that the people of Springfield constantly voting the way that the city leaders wanted them to in terms of tax increases wasn't a goodwill gesture. It wasn't because the citizens trust the city. It was because of self-interest, whether it be employees that directly benefited from the tax increases, and their families, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, but that isn't a goodwill thing. That's hey, this is something that's going to benefit me, going to benefit my career, and then some people in the community that didn't have a direct connection, but believed in the quote cause, believed in fire, believed in police, believed in education, which also is a self-preservation thing, and so that self-preservation approach of voting for those tax increases, that's what motivated people, not, oh, because the city asked us to and we really feel as if they are doing a great job representing us. And I think that's what the city has long maybe thought. And we must be doing a great job. Listen, every time we ask for something, they give it to us. Well, we got a greater test of that relationship with this vote than I think we have with any of the others, because there wasn't a self-preservation component here. Overwhelmingly, anyhow. I mean, there may have been some small business owners that felt that, well, this would be good for their business, bringing people in. But I don't think there was enough of a voting block of people who felt that they would be directly benefited, that they would directly benefit from it. So larger than any other sort of tax increase vote we've seen in recent history, this was essentially reliant on the city saying, hey, you got to trust us on this. We believe that this is a good thing for the city. And the outcome was one that suggested the people, like, no, sorry, we do not have that kind of relationship. This is not why we vote for this. You're asking us to support this because you just say it's a good thing and you're saying trust us and we're going to do. No, don't think so. And I believe that has come as quite a surprise to some and a wake-up call to others. Now, what can be done about it? We've got to get a traffic update, and then I want to address that coming up. And it's interesting because one of the text messages that came in kind of touches on it to some degree. That Pyramid Roofing Company text line is 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. If you're out there looking for a roofing company that uses the cheapest materials and even reuses materials, the Pyramid Roofing Company, they may not be for you. But if you are looking for a roofing company that has been in business for over 30 plus years, that always uses high quality materials, and they identify areas that fail first, so they put extra layers of protection, plus they get to know you and your home. If that is what you are looking for, Pyramid Roofing is the company for you. And look, they get that your home is probably your largest investment that you will make, so they really do want to help you protect it the best that you can. Now, they are not high pressure, they don't upsell, and they don't use scare tactics on you. They really do just want to provide the best work and keep you and your home safe. That's it. So if it is time to have the Pyramid team out to your home, reach out to Josh and schedule that free roof inspection. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
I was mentioning in the last segment sort of the three primary reasons, the latter two, the more important, why it is that this second crack at the bat did not succeed for the city in their request to get people to vote for the convention center tax for the convention center, and even a greater loss this time around, which has got to be a real gut punch. I just can only imagine you really have a lot of high hopes on this thing. And listen, your perception of it all is different than theirs. You got to understand, and anyone's this way. If you get involved in the talks and you're talking with the people that have put these things together, and you start to get excited about these things, and you start to see all of the positives, and suddenly any sort of the negatives become less important because you get excited about it. It's just, it's why they have you test drive cars. You're like, oh man, this is awesome. I love the way this thing feels, and so I kind of actually feel for the people who really pushing this in terms of that emotional gut punch, because that just sucks. And it's not an easy thing. It's a real kick to the morale. Now, the third reason, and I think this is the big problem that is well beyond this convention center vote for the city of Springfield. It is the relationship between the citizens and the city leaders. It is not a good one. And people consistently voting for tax increases for reasons that they felt were going to be directly beneficial to them was misunderstood as being a goodwill gesture or part of this trusting relationship that the city had with the citizens. And I think this showed us that that is not the case. I want to read through some of these text messages because they hit on the problem. Let's see here. One of them, I wonder if the Hotel of Terror issue helped fuel the pushback on this tax. I think citizens are tired of the cities being bullied. Another text message, now that Springfield has lost the convention center, does that mean that they're going to laser focus on the Haunted House of Terror? A number of these text messages are referencing the Hotel of Terror. Another noting the election in Springfield reflects the true citizenry. The elected officials in Springfield elite more likely identify with areas outside of the city limits. The election is a latent effect to the COVID oppression of our community in controversial school board elections. They would have fared better with those who work in Springfield. Now, these different comments signal a very fractured, and it's essentially a divorced relationship that citizens tend to feel with the city of Springfield. Now, and here's part of the problem. We all live in our own bubbles. And when you are on a city council or you're a city manager or a mayor, you are generally around people who are in tune with your day-to-day operation, and you're all kind of on the same page about things. And you get each other. And you oftentimes have the same vision for things. And when that is what you surround yourself with, it is very easy to believe that that is a representation of the citizenry at large. And that just isn't the case. You have these pockets of individuals that are very active, and they have a greater influence over what happens in the city. And it's not because they're doing anything wrong. They just happen to choose to be people that are active. The vast majority of people who are citizens are not that active when it comes to, leadership of the chamber or this political action committee over here, or Greater Springfield of this over there. And there are the quote movers and shakers. And generally speaking, movers and shakers are movers and shakers because they make themselves that way. These are individuals that have chosen that they want to be active in that capacity. It isn't because they're necessarily handpicked or born into elitism. This is just they have put themselves there. And while the people who run a city like Springfield will maybe recognize that and say, well, yeah, we listen to these people because they're the ones who are talking to us, that's fine, but that's not 99% of people. And you just have to understand that and recognize that. Well, I guess you don't have to, but then you end up with situations like this. I think about a number of issues in the past The Hotel of Terror being one, not once, but just twice. The dog breed situation. There have been a number of other instances in which the citizens made it very, very, very clear to the city, hey, we don't like the direction you're going. And the city's response generally has been, too bad, pound sand. And that has resulted in citizens that aren't part of the movers and shakers going out there and getting petitions signed in order to, overturn what it is that the council has done. And again, Hotel of Terror is right now the most prevalent because, once again, that whole situation has risen. And it just sends this message to average citizens that they don't matter. Unless you are one of the movers and shakers, you're irrelevant. I use as another example, just a few weeks ago, we talked about, what was the name of I forgot it again, that facility that...
Oh, the Stardust Ballroom?
Stardust Ballroom. And without recapping all of it, is a situation, local business owner, and had this facility that was catering, more so towards the retired person, offering kind of big band music, I think, sort of that era, and drinks. And then the city's like, oh, well, we decided you can no longer have provisional license in order to sell alcohol because there's this completely arbitrary rule that says if there's two businesses within 200 feet or a business within 200 feet that sells alcohol, you can't. And they said, well, we measured one of them. They're outside of 200 feet. The city's response was, well, we'll send experts over to measure it because we disagree. And then the other place, which was Qdoba, fully acknowledged we don't even sell alcohol. But the city's like, well, okay, so what? And the people who own that facility, they're like, we won't have to shut down if we cannot sell alcohol. And they contacted a city council person who said, yeah, this is silly, doesn't make any sense. Well, common sense will prevail. Let me take care of it. And then the next day came back like, oh, no, I was told there's nothing we can do about it. And that was the end of it. And so there is just this, it is not a new thing. It's not something that occurred overnight. This is the real challenge for the city. This is something that has been baked in very deep for a very long time. All the small businesses, the stories about the nightmare situations they have to deal with when it comes to getting approval for this over here, that over there. Of course, city didn't help itself with COVID. And they just, through their behavior, have consistently sent the message to citizens that we don't care what you think. Shut up, sit down. You're not one of us. And the city, frankly, has been able to adopt that attitude thus far because it really hasn't had a negative impact on them until now. The time that they really needed a citizenry to come out upon their request, they really needed to have a good relationship, the results of a good relationship, it wasn't there. Now, what do you do about it? It is more than, I'm just, call me cynical. I think that the cities will just be like, well, we'll just continue to operate the way we do. Yes, we lost on this convention center, but that's no reason to change who we are. Because it would take a complete culture change. And that means getting rid of the people on the council. That means getting rid of just all of that mindset and replacing them with people that understand the citizens and want to be a representation of or representatives of the citizens instead of the government, which is how they operate now. Now, we have elections. But part of the problem here, and I say problem because it's resulted in this, is the fact that a lot of these organizations like the Chamber and all these, I keep listing it because it's top of mind, but there are a number of these other organizations, they kind of handpick these people, they support these people, they encourage them to run. So they are the ones who have really put these people with this culture in place. And that means they're the ones that if they want this culture to change, that at this point in time are going to have to say, okay, we've been doing this wrong. And I just don't think that they will do that because they're all very closely knit. And I get that. I understand that. But this is what ends up happening when you your primary relationship is not with the average citizen. Because then when you need them, like, oh, really now? Another hour coming up straight ahead. Anything you miss, of course, we've got the podcast at ksgf.com, Spotify, iTunes as well. News coming up in just about 30 seconds. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 104.1, and hour 3 is upon us, friends. Thank you for being here. My name is Nick Reed. Will's Chop House celebrating 1 year. Part of that celebration is giving you a chance to win a $400 gift card. Yes, one person, one big winner, $400. And if you want a chance to win it, just text the Pyramid Roofing Company text line, which is 417-447-KSGF. Text the word Will, W-I-L-L. And if you do it correctly, you should get a kickback letting you know you are entered. We will have a different word tomorrow and a different word Friday. So you have numerous options to get entries in. All right, that's all I have to say about that. Is there anything else I need to say?
No, I don't think so. I think you got it.
Friday, we're going to be having our road show at Scramblers. We'll also have our happy hour, 4 to 6. That will be at none other than Vineyard Market in Ozark. And while we're there having our happy hour, they're going to do half-price apps and buy one, get one on beer and some wines. And so they're just going to make sure we have a really, really good time. And that's all I have to say about that, too. I'm trying to think, is there anything else I need to mention promotionally?
We will have tickets for the MSU Military
Just
Appreciation Game. Yes, so we will have those tickets. That game will be on, I believe...
The next Wednesday.
Yes, I believe it's April 15th, but we will have those tickets out at Scramblers.
Indeed.
Yes, first come, first serve.
Yeah, so if you want some of those, you could just swing by, and as she mentioned, we'll mention it again, especially while we're out there, and it should be a fantastic event. Eric Swalwell has broken his silence on the alleged misconduct with female staff. He says it's false. I didn't even know he was married with kids. Did you know that?
No.
I mean, what does that say about that guy? That he's run for president. He's been a member of Congress. He's running for governor. We know about Feng Feng, this relationship he had with the Chinese spy for like 5 years. It's been alleged by a Democrat activist that he sexually harassed and had one staffer in particular, but there's numerous other female staffers that have either had relationships with him or he attempted to have relationships with them. And all this time, he's married with kids. I had no idea he was even married. It's almost as if the expectations of Democrats are so low when they do this stuff. It doesn't even get mentioned. Oh, yeah, by the way, he's married. Like the marriage is totally irrelevant. Swalwell broke his silence on allegations of sexual misconduct last night after a campaign event in Sacramento, saying social media reports of inappropriate behavior with female staffers are false. So I just want to make sure I'm straight on this. Are we back to not believing victims again? Is that where we are? Because I remember there was a period of time, you may recall this, during the Me Too movement in particular, that victims should be believed. I believe victims. I believe that every woman who was brave enough to come forward was to be believed. It was virtuous to believe them. If you did not believe them, it didn't matter if there was any evidence or proof. They just had to allege. If you did not believe them, you were re-victimizing them. So is that what's happening here? Where are you Dems on this stuff? Swalwell said there has never been an allegation and there's never been a settlement. So he's just flat out denying that these allegations even exist. So his response to the allegation is that there is no allegation. That might be a new tactic. These people are, I don't want to use that term. They are deficient Jedis. They try the Jedi mind trick. There is no allegation. Like, that's not working. That's not working. There are allegations. That's why you're talking about it. That's what you're responding to, is the allegation. But there are no allegations. Still not working. The allegations against the congressman, who's married and has 3 children, have largely been circulated on social media by a handful of Democrat influencers who have claimed that Swalwell engaged in inappropriate conduct with younger women connected to his office or campaign. A spokesperson for Swalwell's campaign issued a statement earlier Tuesday using many of the same talking points the congressman himself told reporters later in the evening. Former Congresswoman Katie Porter, one of Swalwell's top Democratic rivals in the governor's race, called attention to the very troubling allegations while she was being interviewed on CNN. Well, she did she? This stuff is so hilariously played. It's so predictable. Porter said, with regard to Representative Swalwell, I've seen allegations coming from, but there are no allegations. He said there were no allegations. She said, I've seen the allegations coming from women staffers. They are very, very troubling allegations. If those women's stories, it is those women's stories to tell when they are ready, and I hope they feel safe and supported if they choose to do so. Speaking to reporters after a town hall that drew hundreds, Swalwell said neither his congressional office nor his campaign had reached out to the individuals posting the accusations, which he say don't actually exist. Going on to say, I don't want there to be any questions in the minds of Californians, so just don't ask the question. Now, as I mentioned yesterday, this has all the earmarks of an attempt by other Democrats to sabotage his campaign. Currently and pretty consistently in California, the Democrats race, which is called a jungle primary. This means anyone can run that wants to, regardless of party, and the top 2 vote getters, regardless of party, end up on the ballot in the general election. Usually that's 2 Democrats. But because there's a handful of Democrats and only 2 Republicans that are pulling votes, the handful of Democrats are spreading those votes so thin that Democrats increasingly are worried that the only 2 options people in California will have for a governor are 2 Republicans. So what is the remedy? The remedy for that is you eliminate some of the other Democrat opposition. You get them off the ballot so that you have less Democrats spreading things thin, and Swalwell has a lot of baggage, as do the other Democrats, but his is, and he's just smarmy. He's not a very likable person. Not that Katie Porter is. She's awful as well. But because he is one of the higher Democrat vote getters, him dropping out could be the difference between no Democrat being on the general election ballot versus 1 or maybe even 2. But all they need is 1 because it's California, and as long as there's a Democrat option, that Democrat's going to win. So right now, he's not only denying the allegations, but he's denying the allegations that there are allegations. Speaking of California, we've got some real fun stuff. Gavin Newsom's wife, I'm telling you what, this gal is a nut job. She makes Kamala Harris seem smart. She makes Tim Walz. She's very comparable to Tim Walz's wife. If you remember the few appearances she made on the campaign, and you almost felt uncomfortable watching her because she's just weird, that is Gavin Newsom's wife. Now, out in California, she's not California elite weird. She's California elite. That's just weird for the rest of us. So we've got some audio that is beginning to make the rounds. This is not real recent, but over the last, since Gavin Newsom's been governor, at different speaking engagements, she's very out there, very involved, and she, in fact, in one of them even talks about what they tried to do with their governorship. So she clearly sees herself as instrumental as Hillary Clinton did during Bill Clinton's reign, and an equal partner, a co-presidency of sorts, which, of course, means that she could be a very influential first lady.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 76. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 51. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 78. And taking a look at Friday, partly sunny with a chance of showers in the afternoon with a high near 77.
Sarah Myers.
Thank you. That is me. Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. I had lunch with Russell last week, and one thing that he told me that really stuck with me is that most repairs actually come from a lack of maintenance. And, it happens. It's kind of out of sight, out of mind until something goes wrong. Now, if you have noticed a lack of cooling or maybe your unit is struggling to keep up, make sure that you reach out to Russell before it becomes something bigger. Now, the Foreman team, not only do they offer repairs and new unit installs, but they can also offer an annual maintenance program where they come out twice a year. They do everything where they change your filters, they professionally clean your outdoor unit, they check your refrigerant levels and your coils, and so much more. So if it is time to have the Foreman team out to your home, reach out to Russell today. You can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Are you familiar with much much of this Gavin Newsom's wife stuff?
She is crazy.
What's her first? I don't even remember her name. Jennifer.
I saw her
Jennifer
talking at a Planned Parenthood rally at one
Oh,
time.
where she took the microphone from him.
Yeah,
Did you see that
and
one?
she started screaming at the media.
Yeah, she started. She's just, oh man, I. We're going to play some of the audio, and we'll sort of break down some of what she says. But aside from that, it's just the thought. Every time there is the introduction of some new personality on the national stage in the Democrat Party, it's like you think, well, I thought the last one was as nutty as, you know what I mean?
It's true. It's like, do any of them have like a normal spouse? Like any at all?
I really genuinely think, what are these people alike? What do they talk about when they're together? When they're just because they're so bizarre. Let me tell you the other thing about her. If you watch the visuals of some of her talking, she does the same hand stuff that Gavin Newsom does. You know, he does that weird thing with his hands. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
She does. Now, you won't see the visuals of it, but in at least one of these events in which she's sitting down talking from the audio that we're going to play, she's doing the exact same weird hand motion. And I'm like, what? It's just weird. I know sometimes spouses can mimic each other, but it almost made me think as if they had gone through some sort of therapy thing together, and maybe they had issues communicating with one another, and so they were encouraged to utilize their hands more and were trained how to utilize their hands in a very specific, because it's a very odd, specific way. Lord knows I use my hands when I talk. I mean, you people sometimes out at Scramblers, you'll joke about it and how I'm waving my arms around, and my wife's constantly telling me when we're at a restaurant, you're going to hit someone, just because I don't know why I do it, but so it isn't that. It's just the weird way that she moves her hands sometimes when she talks, and it seems like it's a mirror image of him as well. All right, so here she is at one event talking about the issue of gender. She's obsessed with gender.
I've given our boys dolls. Even if they tear the head off, I've given them dolls to learn that care and caregiving is not just an activity that's reserved for women, but that it's also an activity that is a responsibility of men. What I've done with both my daughters and my sons is, if I'm reading a book and the protagonist is a male, I just change the he to a she. And it just normalizes for my sons in particular. I don't even just do it for my girls. I do it for my sons because I want them to see that women can be the center of a story, that women matter, that women are interesting.
All right, I want to pause there and make a point, because I find oftentimes these people on the left are doing they're reinforcing what they're trying to disassemble. She claims that when she's reading stories to her children, that she will change the protagonist, the he to she, in order to demonstrate that women can also be protagonists, can also be. What you're doing, though, is demonstrating for that to happen, you have to take what a man is doing and pretend it's a woman. There are plenty of examples out there of women that are protagonists, that are in leadership positions, that are, quote, interesting. But by taking a man and saying, well, let's pretend this is a woman in order to show you that a woman can be interesting, makes it almost seem like, well, they're not. But they could be, see? If this man was a woman, then she would be interesting. Doesn't that seem like the opposite of what she's trying to do? She had more to say.
I've given our...
Oh, wait. Scratch that. Let's see. You got to pick up the audio. All right, here's the third point she's making on gender.
At the end of the day, we're all kind of like in this place in history, maybe, where we're recognizing what it is to ultimately deconstruct all these gender roles and ultimately be human. And that's exciting to me. So I'll just continue to kind of do my work and try and deconstruct all of these like limiting narratives about ultimately what it means to be human.
Can you imagine having to deal with this?
Ugh, every
Like, half the
day.
time, it's like, I don't even know what your point is. What are you... And it's this contradiction of, oh, you know, like, women are wonderful, they're all, but we have to deconstruct everything that gender is. And on one hand, these people who are so obsessed with gender, but then lecture us on how we have to deconstruct gender. We have to make it irrelevant. You notice how they are so focused on pronouns in the name of gender. Yet they tell us that gender should be meaningless. We need to deconstruct it. And these things are inherent. If you were to take human beings, like the beginning of time, and have them in a vacuum, away from influence, away from, quote, constructs, men would act like men and women would act like women. It's similar to these people that refuse to recognize that atmospheres constantly change, the climate constantly changes. They think that you can just stop science from happening, just stop it. It's the same thing with genders. We could just stop men from being men, stop women from being women. And at the same time, masquerading it as somehow elevating humanity, you're dismantling it. You're taking away what makes a person a person. You have declared that a boy being a boy is just a bad thing. And so we need to fix that. We need to fix. And can we at the same time recognize you Democrats like Gavin Newsom? This is a guy who's been out there arguing that the Democrats have to start talking normal. Meanwhile, his wife is out there saying stuff like this. This is not normal. This is the problem Gavin Newsom is going to have. Because he has either recognized or has consultants that have recognized and convinced him, okay, listen. Normal people, which they probably don't view as normal. They view what we call normal people as, just this sub-level of humans. But they understand they have to get our vote. There's enough of us. They have to talk down to us. This is why Gavin Newsom tells black people that he doesn't read very well and he's no smarter than they are. This is why Hillary Clinton would run around saying that she keeps hot sauce in her purse, just like black people, because they recognize that there are these categories of people and they don't really understand them, so they have to try to pretend to be like them, all right? But Gavin Newsom is out there. What is he going to do with his wife when he has apparently, at least to some degree, accepted, all right, we have to stop talking so intelligently amongst our peers as we are able to have these elevated conversations. We have to start talking down to the average person in order to get them to support us, but then have his wife out there saying this stuff. Was he going to tell her to shut up? I can't wait to watch that happen. We've got more audio. She's even nuttier coming up here in just a couple of moments. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First, meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by JNS Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 76. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 51. For your Thursday, sunny with a high near 78. And taking a look at Friday, partly sunny with a chance of showers in the afternoon with a high near 77.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, that was my microphone.
Oh, was it
I
the
know.
spring or something?
Yeah, and
okay.
I'm kind of nervous that it's going to like pop off and like hit me.
I just heard this boom.
Workman's
What on
comp.
earth is that? Workman's comp. All right, Gavin Newsom's wife is a nut job, and we're playing just audio that people are beginning to be like, oh, wait, look, she spoke at this event. What did she have to say here? And like, oh, she's crazy. So here, this is a clip. And she was having this sit-down conversation about visiting murderers at San Quentin, life sentence. I don't guess they have death row in California anymore. And okay, now the background of this is the fact that when she was, I think, 9 or 6 years old, when she was young, very little girl, and this is horrible, she accidentally ran over her younger sister with a golf cart and killed her. It was a horrific accident thing. I mean, obviously the sort of thing that just, I can't imagine, particularly you're a child, sort of weird. I think even when you grow up emotionally, when you do something like that as a child, even as an adult, you still feel it as if you were a child. And I just think it's a heartbreaking thing. Now, so that is her background. And she's talking about visiting with actual violent murderers in prison.
I mean, I had to be very raw when we interviewed the young men who were juvenile offenders in San Quentin. I told them about my own loss, where I lost my older sister a few days before my 7th birthday, and I blamed myself for her death. And I share that because that they ultimately were accused of committing these violent crimes and sentenced for life. And I think it shocked them that this, blonde lady who was, interviewing them had a similar story, was perhaps in the wrong place at the wrong time, but wasn't punished the way they were, because clearly it was an accident, but theirs was probably an accident too. So anyway, I share that just because I guess, I quite enjoy spending time with people and being real and unmasking and showing them that it's safe to unmask themselves.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Probably an accident. Isn't San Quentin
where
the worst of the worst violent criminals go?
And given that it is not uncommon for people who murder other people to only get sentenced for like 20 years. And especially if these are juveniles she's talking about that end up committing a murder or murders that are so horrendous that they end up serving life sentences, these are the worst of the worst, to your point. And for her to assume or to accept, to declare that most of them, it was probably an accident or they were in the wrong place at the wrong... I'm telling you, these people on the left, there is something wrong with them. This reminds me of that Chicago councilwoman responding to that young student who was just with some friends, wanted to go outside in Chicago by the lake, see if they could catch Aurora Borealis, and she got executed by someone who I think was an illegal, of course. And then this councilwoman was like, well, she was just in the wrong place, the wrong time. And that she probably startled him. He was the victim. So, it was probably an accident. This deranged instinct to favor the people who are the offenders, the criminals. It is a psychological condition. Now, what causes it? I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I'm sure that there are documented causes. What has made her this way? I don't know the answer to that. I do think some of it is a symptom oftentimes, whether this is a case with her or not. People that don't, they're just lost. They've never really had growing up instilled in them any real values. And so they desperately are trying to find meaning. And she probably grew up really privileged, never had any actual struggles, and just tries to find meaning in things. And so that's how they end up. So just rudderless and end up, instead of finding compassion and sympathy in the victims of crimes, looking at the victims as if they somehow had a responsibility in it. And the psychopaths are the ones that they actually sympathize with. She sympathizes with Hamas. I mean, it's just that mindset of people on the left. The folks who carry out the atrocities, the folks that carry out, I mean, here she is comparing herself as a 6-year-old girl who accidentally ran over her sister with a golf cart to men who have deliberately and violently murdered other people. That is not normal. And you get mass derangement oftentimes because what will happen is if Gavin Newsom becomes the nominee, instead of Democrats acknowledging, yeah, that's not normal, they will try to redefine it as normal. Because they can't be wrong. And they then sort of begin to adopt these same belief systems. We're going to play audio next. We're going to take a quick break, and where she openly talks about one of the things that she has been working on and wants to do, feels that is her obligation as the wife of Gavin Newsom, if they do get the control to do it, is to censor the internet in order to instill her political values, because her political values are the correct ones. And she's so disturbed by the fact that she has seen her son online compliment somebody that's considered a right-wing influencer, that it is her job to get in a position of power to start censoring the internet so people don't have access to those political viewpoints. She's openly talking about this stuff. So that next. Look, everyone, it is Sarah Myers.
Thank you. That is me, Springfield Livestock Marketing Center. Now, I live on a little hobby farm, and when we first started looking for our livestock, my husband was like, let's start going to auctions. It'll be fun. You'll love it. And I was like, yeah, sure. Well, update, I do think auctions are fun now, especially when you win and you get a good deal. But we went to a lot of different auction houses at first, and all of them are fine, but I'm telling you, Springfield Livestock, it really stood out to me. The facility is really clean, which I know you're like, okay, but I'm telling you, it's clean, and they have great seating where you can see the auction block from anywhere you sit, and you're not stuffed in there. They've got a great cafe, a vet supply store, and a couple of other storefronts in there as well. So it's like its own little city in there. I really enjoyed my experience there. Hopefully you will as well. I bought my donkey there. I plan on buying a couple of cows here in the next few weeks. To check out other upcoming sales, visit their website, springfieldlivestock.com, and of course you can find all of their contact information under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Will's Chop House celebrating 1 year open. They do live music, by the way. In fact, I think they're going to have some tonight, given their 1 year anniversary or their happy 1 year birthday. Oftentimes on Fridays, they have live music there as well. You know, Chelsea's husband, he oftentimes, did you know that?
No kidding. I
Yep.
didn't know
Yes,
that.
he performs there.
Very cool.
Oftentimes. And as part of their 1 year celebration, they are giving you a chance to win a $400 gift card.
That is awesome.
It is awesome. If you want a chance to win it, get registered by texting the word Will, the name, WILL, to the Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447-KSGF. And that will be your entry. We'll have a different keyword tomorrow as well as Friday, so you have a number of different opportunities to enter. Everyone will be a different entry, so you increase your odds for that $400 gift card to Will's Chop House. Gavin Newsom's wife at another event, been playing some different clips of hers, talking about her duty and you know, as well, she has already declared she will be first partner, not first lady. It's this liberal contradiction of being obsessed with gender while at the same time doing away with gender. And in this clip, she's talking about her son coming across a conservative influencer on social media that most of you have never heard of. You know, some of these people get a lot more attention than I think they warrant. Not that they're not significant, but they'll just be a very, very small but active and vocal base that follows these people, and so they are given a tremendous amount of credit when 99.9% of people who vote and participate in elections don't actually know who they are. But that aside, she's so concerned about her son and other boys being influenced by conservatives that she feels it is her duty to have the power to censor the internet so that her values are instilled. This is Gavin Newsom's wife. This isn't, by the way, when she was in college. This is while he's been governor.
Boys, we all know, I think, or increasingly are realizing that boys are moving away from sort of the more progressive boys that spend time online are moving a little bit I'm trying not to be political here, but are moving to the right and being sort of influenced by the Andrew Tates and some of that sort of alt-right socialization online that we know is very, very dangerous. My husband and I were alarmed when our kids were watching sports online and my son knew about Andrew Tate and thought he was pretty cool and thought that his Republican grandfather, who's not a Trumper, but a fiscal conservative, thought that my father would like Andrew Tate. So that's scary. We're like one of the most progressive households, and our son is confused and asking all these questions. We're working on legislation to hold tech companies accountable and help them be a force for good in our kids and families' lives, to really provide all the best in class resources and support for youth so that they don't go down this rabbit hole of very, very dangerous and limiting narratives around ultimately what it means to be a girl and what it means to be a boy. We owe it to them and ourselves to kind of heal this this gift of modern technology, but curb it to be a force for good. I mean, look, the Gov and I, we have 3 more years. We're trying to institutionalize our values so that they carry on beyond our term.
Part of what is so scary is that her presentation is so not scary. Not the words she's saying. She reminds me of the lead girlfriend of a cult leader. You know, you've got like Charles Manson, but then on this, when he's not around, sort of the default leader in the moment is one of his side chicks, and regurgitates a lot of the same sort of authoritarian perspective. That's what she's like. She kind of just seems like a normal gal, but when you listen to the words, and Donald Trump is supposed to be the dictator. Republicans are the authoritarians she's openly talking about in her own words. And she's not even elected, talking about using her husband's power to hold the, quote, internet accountable, to curb some of this information based off of the political affiliation, to instill their values. I guess we're in North Korea. And this is where the people on the left demonstrate that they are full of crap and that they're posers. They'll run up and down the streets with signs, no kings, no kings, no kings, yet they'll support a person who openly talks about how it's her and her husband's job to get in power, to censor political speech that they don't like because it's contrary to their values. And not just contrary to their values, but that makes it dangerous. She's a nut job. And part of, I think, what does make her so dangerous is because she seems just, you can almost dismiss her as an idiot. Because a lot of what she says, that's the instinct of a person with common sense. This woman is a nut. The problem is when nuts get in power or lead people, whether it's Kim Jong-un or Charles Manson or the Ayatollah. All common sense goes out the window. Their beliefs are no more elevated or sophisticated than the nut job who lives under the overpass that ends up stabbing some other homeless person. It's just they managed to get into a position of power to force their beliefs on other people. And while people like Donald Trump have rolled back the censorship and held people accountable for censorship, particularly of average Americans on the internet, instead of Democrats recognizing, yeah, maybe we shouldn't have done that. Maybe in a free country, that freedom of speech thing, we should probably, not go so heavy on in terms of attacking and not respecting. Gavin Newsom's wife is like, oh, yeah, me and the Gov doubling down. When the Biden administration and Democrats were censoring free speech, they were doing it in the name of, misinformation, falsely claiming that, well, you're just putting factually inaccurate information up. She flat out is saying, oh, if it's just conservative, we need to curb that free speech because conservative values are dangerous values. Oh, yes, but it's Donald Trump that we must worry about, isn't it? Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Here, you listen to what Democrats are at some point going to argue should be the very influential first lady, or as she says, first partner. That is Gavin Newsom's wife. And you listen to the things that she says about gender and how she forces her boys to play with dolls. And she, while reading to her kids, takes storybooks and changes he to she. And then Democrats sit around and wonder why it is that we can't get normal guys to vote for us. Why is it we have such a man problem? Yeah, they on one hand recognize the problem, but they refuse to acknowledge the truth behind it. That is the real roadblock that they continue to run into. And so that's why they try to redefine what being a guy is, redefine what being a man. But science is science, and people are people, and reality is reality. And you're not going to win over guys by continuing this attempt to redefine them and dog on them all the time. Glenn Beck's coming up next. I'm Nick Reed.